appropriate.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Thanks. Hey, I know this is like a serious government meeting and everything, but if y'all ever wanted some welcome music, some hold music, the artist in residence for the US Water Alliance right now, Benny Starr, he actually created a soulful water music playlist. Doesn't include Haydn, so that's great. It's a joke, but
I got it.
laughing.
I got it.
Anyways, it's a really cool playlist. I'd highly recommend it. It's on Spotify, so even if you just wanted to check it out in your own time or whatever, highly recommend it.
Did they have the PFAS shuffle on there?
Not too sure about that one. Does have a pretty good ring to it, as like maybe like a doo-wop vibe or something.
Good morning, Commissioner Clark.
Good morning, Janelle. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. Good morning, Commissioner Murphy.
Good morning.
Thank you. We hear you loud and clear.
And a nice cold morning it is.
Yes, it is. Good morning, Bruce.
Morning, Janelle.
Great, we can hear you. Thank you. And I see Alan. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, Janelle.
Thank you.
Coming through okay?
Yep, we hear you. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner Foster.
Good morning, Janelle.
Thank you. We hear you. Good morning, Commissioner Eskridge.
Good morning.
Thank you. We hear you. Good morning, Commissioner Swanson.
Good morning, Janelle.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commissioner Havel. Good morning, Commissioner Havel. I think your microphone might be on mute.
Yeah, good morning, Janelle.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. Let's see, I haven't seen Beth. Is she on?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay, I must have missed your name here in the listing and going through. Sarah's on, okay. Okay, is Ezra on yet?
I do not see Commissioner Meyer yet, Commissioner Havel.
Okay, so we have a quorum then. We'll call the meeting to order. Let's see, I got the wrong page up here on my iPad. Just a minute. If it loads. Okay, so welcome to all of our guests. And then Janelle, you want to go through the virtual meeting guidance again?
Certainly. And I see Commissioner Meyer has also now joined us.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioner Meyer. Just want to make sure his sound is working for him.
Hi there, I'm here. Good morning.
Thank you. Okay, well, good morning, commissioners, members of the public and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I have just a few decorum rules for everyone to please follow. Number 1, please ensure your microphone is muted unless you're speaking. Number 2, please state your name before speaking. Number 3, in general, please have your cameras turned on if possible if you are speaking. You may turn your cameras off if you're experiencing any technological challenges, and this does include staff for when you are introducing your projects and presenting. And number 4, just as a reminder, the public chat has been disabled, but you can still message the host if you need to. So that is all I have. Let's have a great meeting, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Let's see, any announcements, Michael?
President Hubble, I do not have any announcements this morning, except
Okay.
stay warm. Everyone
Yeah.
stay warm.
Yeah, it's colder than expected this morning. Okay, then we have the welcome of Mark Brunner, electrical project engineer.
Yep, that's me. I'm going to try to start my video here. It says that it failed, so I'm not sure if I can get my video going. Good morning, Commissioners. Bruce Brelli, Director of Engineering. Very pleased and excited to introduce, it's Mark Brunner, spelt Brunner, pronounced Brunner. He's our new electrical project engineer, replaces Dave Lundy. Dave retired on January 8th, a couple of weeks ago. Mark comes to us from Alliant Energy, where he was an electrical engineer in their generation division. At Alliant, his work included electrical upgrades at power plants throughout the southern Wisconsin region. Prior to that, he worked for Town and Country for a little while. Town and Country is an engineering firm here in Madison. Designed electrical upgrades for several municipal water systems while he was there. And prior to that, he worked for Milwaukee Met Sewer District and oversaw their power system improvements at they have 2 treatment plants and at their numerous pump stations. Here at Madison, his job duties are going to be similar to what they were in Milwaukee. He'll be working on the electrical aspects of the numerous projects that we have underway right now. They include liquid processing, stations 13 and 14 rehab, the operations building first floor remodel. And then you'll be seeing the pump station 4 rehabilitation project in the next month or two. We're just starting on that, and he'll serve as the project manager on that. And he'll also be the lead person for the internal electrical view associated with the Energy Master Plan and when we start on the collection system facility plan update. Mark grew up in Albany, just south of the Madison area, so he has strong ties to the region. He's a graduate of UW Milwaukee, is a registered PE, professional engineer, and he also has his Envision certification. He currently lives in Prairie du Sac with his wife, and they have 4 daughters between the ages of 3 and 7, which keep him, I am sure, very busy. But in his limited free time, he enjoys working on his pet car restoration project. So again, we're very glad to have Mark on the engineering department team and welcome him to the district. That's all I have.
Welcome, Mark. Get some good shoes to fill from Dave. Okay, well, thank you, Bruce. That will take us to an accountant, Jasmine Phil. It's going to be introduced.
Commissioner Havel, the person that is introducing the staff accountant, I do not see in the meeting. I was communicating with her this morning. So since Dana, which is the department manager of this group, is here, I'm just going to ask that Dana, could you please step in and introduce Jasmine, please?
Yes, thank you, Janelle. So Jasmine Phil is our new accountant, and her responsibilities are payroll and accounts receivable. She joined a few months ago, and her background is she has 8 years of payroll, accounting, and HR administration experience, including a master's degree in public policy. So we're really excited to have her on the team with all of her experience and background. She's been a great addition to the team. She really enjoys customer service and working across the different areas of the district. She has 2 little babies at home, and in her spare time, she loves to dabble in the kitchen with new recipes and do outdoor activities. So please welcome Jasmine Phil to the accounting team.
Well, welcome, Jasmine. Hope you enjoy working with the district. And thank you, Dana, for filling in for Sifwi. Okay, that will move us to item 2, appearances by the public. Do we have anybody from the public that wishes to appear? Okay. The consent calendar. Can everybody hear me? My screen went to my meetings.
We can hear you. We can hear you, President Hubble.
Okay, something must have been taken off the screen because I have a blank screen right now. Okay, consent calendar. We have item A, approval of the minutes from the last meeting, and then we have the sanitary sewer extension for Acacia Ridge, and then adoption of interim financing resolutions. So do we have any questions on anything before we get a motion? Okay, hearing no questions, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
This is
So moved.
Commissioner Bookland. I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bookland, a second by
I'm happy to second Commissioner
by
Meyer.
Commissioner Meyer. Okay, so motion by Commissioner Bookland, second by Commissioner Meyer to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to the study session. Item 4, Michael, you want to lead this off? And do you want to
will.
give a brief, when you get to the proper point of what Tom Wilson's email basically said?
Sure. We did. Commissioner Wilson may not be joining us till later in the meeting, and he will miss the study session. However, he did submit some comments to me, and I forwarded them to President Hubble. This item is before you because the commission has been governing remotely since the start of the pandemic in March of this last year, 2020. And as you know, while there have been challenges with the shift to virtual meetings, and we've tried some things, there have also been opportunities that we've identified and some real positives. So the commission several months ago requested this agenda item to consider how to best govern with excellence with post-pandemic, and we've deferred having that conversation until we had more experience working in a virtual space and seeing how it works for us. And so we can take the learnings of the virtual governance into consideration. In the commission agenda report, I've provided some of the more legal parts of meeting as a commission, and some citations from the open meetings law. Of course, these laws were written before virtual meetings, but it outlines what those requirements are for meeting. The commission has also, through your policy book, established your own guidelines and standards for governing, and that's where the governing with excellence idea came from. And it's really setting what you have done is set a very high bar for governing the district that focuses on good decision-making processes and cultivating strong relationships between each other as commissioners and teamwork, and also strong relationships with staff and the public. And so that has really been an important part, which I think in some instances sets yourself apart than many other governing bodies who don't have that level of responsibility, that you are there to initiate policy and action, not just rubber stamp staff ideas, and that a split vote is not necessarily always a good outcome, even if you're on the winning side of it. That having a sense of how do we problem solve and bring some consensus along helps with solutions that are durable for the long term, where everyone feels good about it. So that is really where we're at. And I put some questions in the commission agenda report for your thought leading up to this meeting. So President Hubble, I'll hold off any other comments that I have until the discussion goes on. So I'll just turn it back over to you and the commission, and then at some point I can share what Commissioner Wilson's thoughts.
Okay, does anybody have any comments that they would like to make? So I'm trying to open here the commission agenda report.
I've got one thought. This is Commissioner Meyer.
Go ahead, Ezra.
I just wonder, for Michael and staff, do we have any feedback from the public since we switched over? You know, we've offered a whole bunch of new tools and opportunities and ways to connect. I know feedback sometimes is thin, but you know, you just don't hear. But I wonder if we have any.
I'm trying to recall myself, Commissioner Meyer. I don't know if we've had any direct feedback. I will say that during the budget process, we did have a few members of our owner communities plug in to the budget discussions, which was positive. So that was one encouraging factor that I think we experienced.
And then, yeah, that would be the second sort of corollary piece is what sort of, it might be overstating it to call it data, but I mean, we all know that we see somewhere between 0 and 1.0, you know, humans per meeting normally. And now is it increased above that? Do we have just some numbers that sort of show, hey, it appears people find it easier to connect with us when it's a virtual offering than when they have to show up at the maintenance building on a Thursday morning?
That's a good question. I was going to say, Amanda, if maybe you could jump in here. You probably have some stats.
Absolutely. Well, I don't have exact stats, but this is Amanda Wagner, Communications and Public Affairs Manager. I would say, and I can go back and look at this and pull this information if the commission would like it. But just anecdotally, we do have people watching the YouTube live stream with every commission meeting. It does vary. I think there's 5 watching, 6 watching right now, the live stream, because I have it up in the background. Obviously, they can't then communicate back to us, but people are watching and they are going back and watching the parts of the video later. So that was a new piece that we offered. I believe that was in July that we began live streaming to YouTube. So we are getting at, I wouldn't necessarily call it engagement, but people tuning in to at least know what we're talking about. And it's another option for them to be part of the meeting, even if they're not on the Zoom.
Thanks, Amanda.
So I think it'd be best, as the staff report indicates, to get back into in-person meetings. But who knows when that's going to be? I'm thinking probably sometime in the summer. I don't think we expected the things to be going as long as this has, but last year anyway. But I do think that we're committing ourselves more to this potential virtual option. We always allowed the phone call in before for people that were remote or couldn't make the meeting. So that probably could be still an option. And so then we have to look into what it would, the time and cost involved in having a camera in the room. And then I don't know if they can connect the sound system to the camera, or we have to, do anything with the sound system. But I think those would be important considerations. Then the question comes up, would we allow testimony at public hearings in that not in person, or would we require the person to be attending the meeting or not? So that's kind of some additional thoughts to consider. Anyone else have anything they'd like to enter or say?
I'll throw in my 2 cents, President Hubble. I think, there's the 2 different questions maybe of what's best for the commission to do its work, as a group. I think when we reach a spot where it's safe to do so, coming together in person makes sense. I guess I think we first passed the phone it in as a commissioner rule on my behalf when I was traveling a whole lot for work, and I always appreciated that, and I think others have. You know, I would hope we could consider sort of a Zoom in option, with advance notice to staff if that could work for a commissioner who has to be, in another county, in another state, and would still love to participate in the meeting. That's something to think about even after it's not a requirement because of the pandemic, but just as a flexibility for commissioners. But then the second aspect of this is sort of the public access. And to me, all of these virtual ways we've been doing things seem like they really open it up that way. And I guess I'd like to see us, I mean, obviously cost and logistical challenges are real and we need to balance that, but I'd love to see us think about how to do flexible offerings like we're doing with YouTube, Zooming in, et cetera, for members of the public that want to participate at whatever level, right? Whether they just want to watch, whether they want to watch asynchronously, or if that's the right word, not at the moment that we're live, but later. And then if they actually would want to participate, say make a public comment at the beginning when we have that opportunity on every agenda. I don't know, as much as we can be flexible that way with the public, I really hope we will consider those different opportunities for them to do that.
Yeah, I think that's similar to my points, Ezra, that the whole idea, if we're getting more and more flexible, if we allow call in, I don't know why you wouldn't allow Zoom in and things like that. The only thing that kind of gets is about the testimony is that if you have presentations in that, are they fully understanding and seeing all the slides that are given or not? But we can always work through that. That's my main concern about somebody who testifies after a presentation is given. Did they fully see and understand the slides? It's a little different being in the room than being remote and virtual. Understanding what's being done. Okay, anybody else?
President Hubble, I've been trying to seek recognition.
Oh, Grant, go ahead.
Thank you. So I think this is a really, really important discussion. For what it's worth, there's a committee at the City of Madison that is just beginning review of this question as well. A lot of implications obviously there, and there will likely be a committee of the whole discussion at the Common Council in the next several months on this topic. I guess my starting point is perhaps on the other side from yours, President Hubble. I think the advantages of virtual meetings are really significant. I can say in my experience at the city, both at Common Council meetings, committee meetings, as well as neighborhood meetings on individual topics, we have seen a huge increase in public engagement. And I've personally received on countless communications from my residents and constituents about how much they value that opportunity. There are some challenges with it, and access to technology and internet connectivity is something that needs to be considered and addressed. But I think as compared to the challenges of transportation, childcare, et cetera, that's required for attending an in-person meeting, in my mind, virtual meetings are far and away better for public access and engagement for sure. As a commissioner, to be honest, this has been a really significant improvement for me. It's challenging to get down to headquarters by 8 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday, particularly because I often have really late meetings on Wednesdays. And, I depend on a bike to get me there. And quite honestly, just riding on Broadway and across the Beltline is one of the most dangerous places for me to be personally. So from a selfish perspective, I feel like I've gotten full access to the meetings. I think we've had really good debate. I can see the presentations just as good on this screen as I could prior. So I think on that side as well, I find a lot of benefits. I'm able to stay for the full meeting where I have, another meeting that's starting at 10 or 10:30 where previously I'd have to leave early in order to make it there. And I think the other point I just want to raise is this concept of hybrid. I think we need to be really careful about that. I think there's this concept that we can have the best of both worlds. Like, well, let's just keep the good stuff of virtual, but we can get back to in person. And I think from a technical perspective, I'm really doubtful that we will be able to maintain a lot of the positive qualities of virtual meetings in a hybrid scenario. Part of why virtual attendance was, I would say, much less than ideal previously, is because when you have a primary group in a room together, looking eye to eye, having a conversation, and then somebody either calling in or videoing in, they're very much outside of that circle. They're not really an equal participant in that environment. And there are a lot of technical challenges to making that work and to making it work well. When it's all virtual, everybody's faces here, all of us are connected. We're all working through this virtual environment. And I think it's much more similar and much closer to a face-to-face than a hybrid type scenario. So I just want to put that caution out there. I think we can certainly look into it, but in my mind, we're a hybrid scenario. If we realistically have several commission members on a regular basis, trying to attend by video, and the other half or 2/3 or whatever it is are in person, I think it's going to be a much poorer experience than what we have right now in an all virtual environment. So, I would like full consideration of continuing to be all virtual, and I would be in favor of perhaps having some, once a year or twice a year, or whatever the right timing is to come together in person and have face-to-face meetings. I think there are some benefits there just in terms of our connection with each other. But I would prefer that to be the exception rather than getting back to a in-person every 2 weeks scenario. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Beth.
Okay, thank you. Yep, this is Commissioner Bookland, and well, I agree. I think the Zoom meetings are a great way to engage the public and to, it's convenient for all of us. But being one of the newer commissioners, I really see a benefit to actually being in person with everybody on occasion. I started and then the COVID hit, and I've been able to see everybody in person maybe twice. And so it'd be really nice. I'd love to be able to sit and see everybody face to face from time to time. So I think a combination of having, face to face meetings on a particular schedule and then the Zoom meetings would be the best option that I would recommend.
This is Sarah. I echo that. I was going to echo the pieces of what Commissioner Foster said around hybrid being really hard. I think it's important to offer that for people when we're traveling or other circumstances make it so that you can't attend the in-person meeting. But I like the idea of regularly scheduling in-person and all virtual meetings as defaults, maybe even one each per month. If we're meeting twice per month, one is in person and one is remote by default, or some sort of cadence like that that creates a degree of predictability on what's in person and what's virtual.
Okay.
Yeah. Tom, Commissioner Clark, I agree with Sarah. I think that's not a bad idea to kind of mix up the virtual and in person. The virtual, like probably most people on the commission, it fits my personal business schedule very well, but I think the in-person has its value. And I also feel that in-person discussions on topics, I think you get a more thorough discussion when we're face-to-face on some of those things versus someone have to basically having to go on TV to voice their opinion on it. But that's just my feedback for you.
Okay.
Tom,
Sure.
Brad Murphy.
Oh, okay, Brad. I didn't see your hand.
I didn't raise it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Good discussion. I really appreciate the comments that Commissioner Foster and Estrich made. I think that I would agree with the idea of scheduling regular in-person meetings. I see some value in getting back together in the same room periodically on a regular basis. But I also think that Commissioner Foster made some very good points, and I think he's probably right that trying to get a hybrid meeting schedule that really works well for everybody, allowing people to Zoom in and having them feel like they're equal participants with those in the room. I think he's right. In fact, when we do have people calling in, it's difficult for them to participate equally with the people that are in the room. I see some value in getting back together in person. I miss that, although this has been just great, especially in the winter, to be able to go downstairs and get away from the grandchildren and come to the meeting and avoid the commute. But I like the idea of getting back in person on a regular basis as soon as we can. Thank you.
Okay, Mary, you got your hand up.
Commissioner Swanson. Yeah, I want to echo or say that I'm in agreement with the way this conversation is going. I totally agree with Grant's comments. And I just wanted to suggest considering quarterly in-person meetings. If, it seems like the benefits of the Zoom meetings are good enough, great enough that we want to have more Zoom meetings than in-person meetings, but still meet periodically in person. I would think quarterly might make sense in terms of the timing.
Okay, thanks. So I think what I'm hearing is that we would not necessarily go to the hybrid option. We'd either be Zoom or we would be regular. Now we have to decide what's regular. We've heard from, basically say quarterly up to one meeting a month. So, and as I was thinking, as people were commenting on that, there might be one of those months, say September, October, when we're working on budget, where there might be a situation where you want 2 meetings in a row that are in person. So I don't know, Michael, is there a way that we could kind of go through the calendar and figure out what would be the best meetings to be in person versus not, and then try to come up with a number? Or do you think it's just better to pick like the second meeting of every month will be in person, the first meeting will be virtual, and then we're always set on that way, and everybody has a knowledge? Or if we do it by quarter or 6 times or every other month or whatever?
I think I think having it scheduled is better, and what, as I'm hearing this discussion, I'm thinking where the value is in the conversations, and where that usually happens is when we have study sessions like what we're doing right now. And those may lend themselves better to in-person meetings versus a lot of our meetings are more transactional. They are approving a contract. And we could do a better job of bundling the transactional decisions with study session topics. And actually, a couple of years ago, President Hulvey, you may even remember that we used to alternate meetings. We do one study session meeting a month.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And so what we could do is just go back to that and have those study session meetings be in-person meetings. And if we schedule it, we can manage it. The other factor, at least from a staff perspective, we had a really robust discussion about this at the executive team, and I had it with the operations staff, just saying, well, what are your thoughts on this? And even though they're disconnected, and there's a real value, at least this is me personally, being able to read the room during important discussions, because in 1 second, I can monitor the tempo and see, should we speed up because the commission's on board, or is there some confusion that we need to slow things down? And that's many times my role in these meetings. And it's more difficult virtually, because I don't see your body language. I don't see a commissioner leaning back in his chair and or whatever, like Commissioner Foster just I saw that. That there's something to be said about looking at its, communications more than just the visual. And when I'm presenting, I can't see all of you because I'm looking at my notes and whatever screen. The other thing is I think it's pretty clear the staff likes seeing you here and on occasion, because there's a sense of pride, even though you're here just every a couple hours twice a month, that you're showing up, and you see a lot, and you see, you smell, and of what's going on, even though and you get an impression. If you would have visited the plant in July, I think you would have seen an entire Nine Springs treatment plant under construction. And that would have given you an impression of how much work is actually going on around here, and the show and tells and other things. So having some way for the connection, the physical connection, I think really builds those relationships, both as between you as a commission and with us as staff.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I think it gets a lot to what Beth was saying earlier, that they're in Ken and others about that in person, that it's not just between commission to commissioner, but it's also staff to commission as well, and having eyes on in the plant and what's going on. Grant.
Thanks. I just wanted to throw out there, I think we heard a suggestion for once every 3 months or once every month. And, obviously there's something in between, which is once every 2 months. In general, I would rather have the in-person where we're pretty confident that there will be value in doing that. I think it certainly can be more frequent than once a quarter. As I think, Tom, as you said, during budget season, having 2 in a row, I think, whatever is needing and whatever the right cadence is. I would just prefer not to sort of do it. I think every other meeting feel like, just given my history and what our discussions have been, that feels a little bit more frequent than where I think we'd really find that value. So I guess my ask would just be to sort of start from, at least once a quarter. And then if that's too far apart and we want to have more of the study sessions more frequently, or any other topics, I think, adding in additional meetings, or maybe going every other month having one, or, something in between would be my preference. But it feels to me like every other meeting feels a little bit too frequent, considering the types of conversations that we normally have to have over the course of the year.
Okay, so I was almost going to ask what the preference was for, we're basically between quarterly or once a month, or an option in between. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Grant's indicating the quarter. Ezra?
Yeah, Michael kind of hit on this before, but it's maybe hard to sort of pick an arbitrary, every third, every second meeting, but if we really let the agenda items drive it, and we do this great sort of structural look at agenda items out, into the future. And I think staff is doing even more sort of refined planning on where the agenda is going to go than even we see, is my sense. So I think we could always be a month or two at least ahead in anticipating which format we're going to be in because of what the agenda items are, and then communicating that very clearly to all of us and to the public in what gets posted and what comes out to us through calendar invites and all that. So I guess I'm advocating sort of a flexible but driven by the agenda substance and whether it calls for us being in person together or not, as opposed to something that's really rote and just set, every other second meeting or whatever.
We got an issue, be flexible. That goes against the very predictable idea of doing it like once a quarter or once a month or once every 2 months or something like that. So that kind of gets to my first point. If we looked at the calendar, Michael, looking out, do you think we could pick, like 4 to 6 meetings that would be best to be virtual, and maybe there's some that have to add? And quite frankly, if we get to issues, DNR issues or something with PFAS where we really need to have that in-person discussion, we could always add that, I suppose. We could say that, okay, in 2 months or in a month, we're going to be having a discussion on PFASs. Let's get together for that, even though it wasn't a scheduled meeting. Does that make sense, Michael?
It does. A couple other thoughts, because we have couple other levers to work with here. For example, if we were to do less frequent in-person meetings, would the commission be willing to have longer meetings those days? So then we could bundle our major study sessions around energy master plan, biosolids management policies, Badger Mill Creek, which are these big conversations, and we could have 2 study sessions in a meeting, and that might take us till 11 instead of 10. But they'd be less frequent. So that's just something to think about. If you're going to show up and have less showing up, do it that way. I agree also that I don't think having a in-person study session is necessarily needed every other meeting, and maybe every other month it would work. At least at the staff level and for future agendas, we would block out study session and see that as a planning resource to my team, and start to fit in their processes. They're working hard on and want your guidance on certain things, but if they can shoot for a second meeting in May study session with you, they will adjust their processes to make it work, because a lot of these policy discussions are not urgent, need a decision today. They're saying, we're going in this direction, commission, what do you think? Are we going in the right direction? What input do you have? So you can put us back to work and we can get work done. So I guess what I'm saying is, let's plug them in on a regular basis, maybe not monthly. We try it, and just like anything, if it's too often, we can take a regular meeting off if we have nothing for a study session, and we'd be a little bit flexible with it.
Okay, so why don't we work on this, Michael? Go to basically say 6 times a year, committing to those meetings that are in-person meetings to being more of the study session where we need discussion on issues, and that we understand that you may be combining items into one agenda, which may take most of the morning rather than trying to be done by 9:30 or 10 o'clock. Is everybody okay with that kind of approach? And then we would remain flexible in that if we see certain issues that come up that we need to have in-person meeting on, we would do that, and vice versa. If there's some study session issues that just don't seem to demand that level of attention of in-person, we could do that virtual too. Does that
Okay
make
with
sense?
me.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? So I see Sarah popped her finger up, thumb up. Okay, so Michael, I don't know, maybe what we could do, you and I could go through the calendar and then try to pick those meetings. You want to, kind of take a look at the calendar, set your meetings, and then we can pick them out. what meetings would work, when the study sessions would work best within the overall calendar with your workflow and everything?
That sounds good. And I think this is virtually, or this is in line with what Commissioner Wilson emailed to me, that he would prefer to go back to I'm reading in-person meetings at some point when it's safe to do so. And that having staff check out the cost to do cameras and other things and logistics seems appropriate at this point. Suspecting we will not really be able to do that safely until at least June. So I think he's clearly leaning in the direction of having some in-person interactions, and that was Commissioner Wilson's thoughts.
Grant, you have your hand up?
Yeah, no, this all sounds great to me. I just wanted to add one thing for staff to investigate, which is for those in-person meetings, I would love to be able to continue to live stream on YouTube, for example, and / have recordings available. So, that's probably a little different. It would take some thinking, I think, as opposed to just being able to do that with our virtual meetings. But I guess I would ask that we do continue to look into that, because I think having that available to the public is really beneficial, and especially for these kind of bigger policy discussions and study sessions, I think it would be great to still have that accessibility for the public. So that would be my ask.
Yeah, we will do that. I think Amanda has already looked at some options, some technology options, and we'll look at the costs, and at some point we'll bring those back to the commission for some thought and discussion.
Yeah, I think it.
You're muted, Tom. We're not hearing you.
I'm off. I just turned it on and went off. Sorry. I thought we're committing to keeping a virtual presence regardless if we're in person, or obviously virtual all the time. But if we're in person, we'll be committing to keeping that somewhat of a virtual presence and recording the meetings, as a lot of local governmental units do or had done regularly. Okay. Anybody else? So we'll look to do 6 times a year. I'll work with Michael. He'll get the calendar kind of set up based on workflow or projected workflow of study sessions, and then we'll realize that it will remain somewhat flexible in doing some virtual if their study sessions don't seem to comport to needing in person, or realizing that we may have to go to an in-person meeting if certain issues pop up. Sometimes personnel issues pop up, and those really demand more of an in-person type of session, particularly if it's a closed session where we can get, Grant.
Thanks. Just one specific point we didn't touch on, but the commission policy CP2E does have the statement that says a commissioner may not participate electronically in a contested case hearing before the commission. So I guess I'd be interested if there's any background that I'm not aware of, but otherwise I would be interested in considering an amendment to that policy to strike that one. I think I'm not sure what the purpose of it, but I think in my opinion, it would be better to just pull that out, so that if we do have a commissioner that's not present for any reason, but they're attending virtually, I think they should be able to participate. And I guess it would be good to even consider is a contested case hearing one of the things that we're thinking should be in person, because it might be more of the regular business kind of stuff that we would be considering doing all virtually. So in either case, I guess maybe we do it at a future meeting, or maybe we talk about it here, but I would lean towards amending that policy to pull up item number 4.
Okay, well, this was identified as a study session, so can we take action under a study session? Should we just put that on as a future agenda item to?
Well, I think so, because it will require a change in commission policy and a resolution, and we can bring some back. Honestly, I recall writing that policy, but I don't recall why that was in there, and I don't know if Attorney Kent remembers, but I don't. And I tried looking back at my notes from several years ago, but I'll try to dig those up and see if there was some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't recall either. It might have been just that we were so conditioned to in-person meetings that it was just thought that that's the best way.
Well, I think in general, and I think I would draw a distinction between a contested case hearing which is typically, an appeal of a disciplinary matter or a contract dispute. I mean, these are relatively rare. I mean, I don't actually recall being in one of those in the time I've been with the district. So I don't see this as the normal, what I'll call legislative kind of public informational hearing. But in the case of a contested case, typically, the decision maker, part of that, whether it's a judge or an administrative law judge, part of it is determining the credibility of witnesses, and that's usually done best when you've got some face-to-face interaction in terms of that. I mean, that's at least historically kind of where that came from. I guess my thought is that given how relatively rare those are, it would seem to me that those would be things that could fall into that schedule of in-person if you want. I mean, you could do it the other way, but I think that's kind of the origins of why you'd want to have that face-to-face, because it is kind of a judging credibility of witnesses kind of issue.
Okay. Michael, why don't you have something drafted up per Grant's direction, and then we can consider it at another meeting. And maybe we think, I don't even remember the last time we had a contested case. I don't know if the issue with the one ArcGIS guy was if that was considered a contested case or not, the one employee personnel issue that we had. I don't think it was.
It was not.
So I don't know if we've ever had one, so maybe it's kind of a moot point from the fact that there's just so seldom occur. Okay. Anybody else have anything? Go ahead.
One quick, so there's a little nuance that occurs to me. I really like where we've come with this whole conversation. One little nuance that occurs to me is, okay, so on a day when we choose, to have the in-person meeting, there may be one or two commissioners who need to or wish to connect in, sort of as we do with the phone, the phone rule in the past. I mean, Amanda's probably a mile down this road already ahead of me, but thinking about whether, what those opportunities are like. Is it simply calling in in the sort of the conference call mode that we've done before, or can we actually sort of be Zooming for that one person and their little faces up on the screen at the front of the room and the audio is all hooked up? I have no idea what the technical implications are there, but just thinking about that question of how does that occasional, virtual connection to an otherwise in-person meeting take shape?
Yeah, I think we can do that. I think the technology keeps getting better. The commission may remember when you were doing your strategic planning in 2018, we had on occasion one or two commissioners brainstorming virtually with their fellow commissioners who were at the district, and we made it work, and it worked really well. So, the technology is way better now, and I think we can make that happen.
I think we'll always have the option of attending virtually, unless potentially a contested case, depending what the commission decides in that matter. Okay, excuse me. That concludes our study session. Michael, you have a chief engineer and director report?
I don't have anything to report. We still have not heard from the DNR on or at least our proposed settlement on the contested case issues. So I really have nothing else to report at this time.
Okay, and then anything on the innovative public engagement briefing?
Yes, we have a presentation for you from Catherine Harris.
Okay. Just getting all set up here. All right, well, oh, look at that. My background is different because of a different meeting I was in. All right, well, I guess it's relevant for this, so I'll just leave it. Good morning, everyone. I'm Catherine Harris, and I'm a pollution prevention specialist here at the district. Can everyone see my slide?
Yes,
Okay,
Catherine, you're good to go.
thumbs up, great. So yeah, I'm here, as you can see, to give a update on innovative public engagement around One Water. So my plan for this morning is to just kind of go through, refresh on what are we even talking about with innovative public engagement? Why is that needed right now? Recap on some of the sort of pop-up opportunities that have come up over the past couple of years to move in this direction, and then overview sort of the biggest opportunity here for innovative engagement, which is Shop One. And with that, we'll conclude and look to where we're at now and where we're going in the future. So before I dive in, like I said, I just wanted to really quickly note that across the whole organization, the district engages in lots of different kinds of engagement, lots of different interactions with the public and education. Certainly you hear about these with public notices, meetings surrounding engineering projects, sector-specific partnerships, and even targeted communications like the new microsite for PFAS. So all this is to say, I'm not aiming here to summarize all public engagement that's happening with the district, but really I'm focusing on capturing a specific subset of opportunities that we have to seek solutions in the community, to use new tools and find new ways of engaging, new strategies and connections, excuse me, that will really help us to envision this One Water future. So why is innovative public education so needed right now? Well, the U.S. Water Alliance cites water as the defining issue of our time. There's increasing pressures on water quality, diminishing returns for infrastructure solutions, decreasing certainty, and increasing demand for transparency from ratepayers. These are big, big topics that you all are talking about all the time. So all of these combined make the landscape possibly more challenging than it has ever been before. And a new way of thinking and managing water resources really needed to meet these challenges. This is what the U.S. Water Alliance calls the One Water perspective, where the value and interconnectedness of all water is seen and managed sustainably. So to make this One Water future a reality, simply put, solutions that have been reliable to us for a very long time just won't be enough going into the future. So the U.S. Water Alliance has provided guidance to utilities across the country to unlock some of these new ways of operating in this Advancing One Water through Arts and Culture Blueprint for Action. This has really been a guiding document and guided sort of way of moving forward here. So a lot of what we're doing now has really taken from this blueprint. So one of the new approaches is community engagement. And now public education and outreach isn't really new for the district. There's a long history of providing public tours, working with the Friends of the Capitol Springs, for example, ad hoc presentations from staff at science fairs or community groups. Yet locally, we find that many residents in the district service area have never heard of the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District and actually have a really hard time describing what the wastewater treatment plant does in broad terms. So this slide here is, it's from the survey that I came and talked to you all about in 2019. So a lot of the outreach that has gone on, frankly, has had a very limited reach. So it's relied on the enthusiasm of non-educator staff volunteers who are kind of trying to squeeze things in between their other work once in a while, just because they care about it a lot. So from this same survey, we can see that there really is a public desire to know more about water, and the district isn't necessarily currently delivering on that. So majority of respondents rate the district's work to educate the community about water lower than other areas of operations. So you can see total negative rating of how the district's doing on educating the community about water is majority. So it's time to get to work, and with a carefully designed platform, MMSD can join other utilities around the country in finding ways to expand outside of what we've always done and the audiences we've always reached, to forge new connections outside the plant fence that really will yield real outcomes in terms of treatment plant operations and water quality. So as a pollution prevention specialist, so much of my work is on behavior change. And so if folks don't know how to use the wastewater system responsibly, where else are they going to get this information? So the blueprint that I mentioned earlier has really been the guiding light for the innovative outreach that we've done over the past couple of years. And the framework emphasizes so strongly the importance of relationship building and building capacity. This is long-term work, and there's no quick fix, no magic pill. It really all takes incremental building. So now I want to go through a couple of the things that we've done over the past few years here, just as a recap, and to give you a sense of what is meant by innovative public education, how we're going outside of what has been done in the past. So the first thing I want to talk about is the See It Scholarship. This was an opportunity for district staff to go and to other wastewater treatment plants that have public education centers and see what they're doing. This was funded by the Water Research Foundation and the Leaders Innovation Forum for Technology. So we saw a really wide range of operational governance funding models and different kinds of approaches. In addition to actually visiting spaces, we've done a ton of listening and learning, staying plugged into what's happening across the country through industry publications, just paying attention to the news that's going on, participation in regional and local organizations like NACWA, WEF, Art Place America, and even a lot of one-on-one interviews with other utility staff as well. So last year worked with the University of Wisconsin Institutes of Discovery, their Science to Street Art program. It was in its pilot year to put a mural about molecular structure up at Pumping Station 8. That's near Wright Middle School or the Wingara Post Office right off of Fish Hatchery Road. Plainert Drive, Plainert Avenue, something Plainert Street. The work costs very little to the district. It was mostly funded by a Smithsonian Institute grant and private donations to the Science to Street Art program. So it'll eventually have tie-ins with virtual reality and the actual school science curriculum, which the institutes are coordinating all of that. So not only has this partnership resulted in a mural, which you can see here on my slide, here's some close-ups. It really importantly has led to networking with the organizers of the Wisconsin Science Festival. So after working on this project together, the organizers of the Wisconsin Science Festival really saw what a big topic water is and how underrepresented it is in a lot of school science curriculums. So they chose water as their overarching theme for the statewide science festival for the next 5 years. So that's pretty big. In late 2019, another partnership with the university, we had a really exciting opportunity to work with the School of Human Ecology Design Studies capstone class. So advanced interior architecture students came to the plant, toured, heard about what is wastewater all about, and they started dreaming the possibilities for what that space could manifest into. So this all culminated in a public gallery, and the Ecosystem Services team actually got to go and look at all their designs. It was a really cool experience. And then of course, last time we were at the commission talking about Shop One and tours and things. It was for approval of a contract to improve the Shop One conference room space for internal uses. So we were bettering the acoustics in there. If you've attended meetings, you know it's really hard to understand people who are even a couple feet away from you. So to have an entire, class of 100 students in there, it didn't really work. So I'm really happy to say that the lighting and acoustics were completed last February. It was a design build project, and overall very successful. You can see the before and after pictures here. And I hope that the commission will get a chance to still have a meeting there in person. To really see the difference firsthand. A lot of it's hidden, but the acoustics are so much better. It's really night and day. Okay, so all of these projects have been really, really useful in learning you're growing, but they're pretty much discrete occurrences. So one of our biggest opportunities ahead for really diving in and developing a framework for sustained intentional community outreach is presented through Shop One. So recap, since we have some newer folks here who might not be familiar, this space, Shop One, this building, is literally the closest building to the edge of the plant. So it's our closest connection to the community geographically. It's an opportunity to seek solutions in the community, a place to really engage water stewardship. So you can see here, I circled Shop One. That's right there by Gate 2. The building itself has a really long history. It was originally a pumping station. It's actually my virtual background. I used it for a different meeting I was in earlier. But so it's gone through a lot of different lives. It's been a pumping station, a laboratory, offices, home base for Metrogro to develop. Most recently, it was actually a repair shop. So there's pumps and pipes and cars, all kinds of stuff getting worked on in here. So that's where the name comes from, Shop One. It's a synthesis of recognizing this history, and then also the future, what's going to be going on in here. We still wanted to retain that idea of it being a shop, a place where work is happening, we're tinkering, but also it's Shop ONE because of one water. So it's kind of a play on words there. So anyhow, lots of different faces. This space is always somehow aiding the district, adapting to whatever the challenge of the day is for protecting public health and the environment. So with the construction of the maintenance facility, where you normally have your commission meetings in person, that was in 2015, the page for Shop One really turned to the next chapter of the building as this public education center. So the goal is to stimulate water connections and engage and empower water stewards, inspire curiosity. So as you can see, these goals, Shop One is a building, but it really is an opportunity to be deliberate in building inclusive programming that goes forward and can be sustained over the long term. So it's a building, but we recognize that not everything under this sort of idea will fall within the actual walls of this building. So Shop One, it's kind of a tidy way to package up that concept and the building kind of all in one. So the whole idea here is to really shift in the long term how we as the district engage with surrounding communities and beyond, and think about our own individual relationships with water. So this kind of brings me to where we're at now, which is we're in a process of imagining next steps, or what in the budget is called catalytic projects. So the district is supported in this work by the U.S. Water Alliance's inaugural Arts Accelerator program. We've been selected as one of just 5 utilities across the country that were chosen to be part of this program and to be a case study for other peer organizations. It's a really exciting time to have recognition that we're on the right track, and support and guidance through crafting catalytic projects from the U.S. Water Alliance. In addition to their support, we also hired a professional facilitator. Did Carlo end up making it onto the call? I'm not sure I can see all the participants. Okay, not hearing him. So we hired a professional facilitator. The company is called Creation in Common, and they're out of St. Paul. And we've assembled a very diverse group of local artists and cultural practitioners who are very deeply rooted in community practice. So they're helping us put all of those ideals into action. So the picture I included on this slide is a screenshot of the program mural that we're using to sort of capture the meetings. We're on our 4th meeting with the Creative Collaboration Advisors. Their ideas are really evolving, and this program is serving us as sort of a timeline or a way to capture what lessons we've learned from working with them. Their insight into building projects that are equitable and really reach people is so invaluable. We're learning and listening lots. So the projects will start to take shape later this summer. And that name catalytic is something from chemistry. So in chemistry, catalyst is something that kind of like pushes the reaction forward and gets things started. So that's what we're really hoping these projects will do, is provide a pathway and help build capacity for something over the long term. So that concludes what I have for today. I look forward to hopefully coming back and updating you about this in the future. The last thing that I just wanted to share quickly before I take some questions is that we're very lucky to have an intern this summer help and design an entire website to capture everything about Shop One, the space, and projects ongoing. So that is at onewatermadison.org. So that's all I have for today. So any questions, I'm happy to chat and answer those.
I did want to just remind the commission that the Shop One concept that Catherine shared with you a few slides back about the vision and purpose, the commission supported that and gave us a staff direction to look for partnership opportunities, and Catherine and her team have done just that. They have found these opportunities. They have sought out private funding or funding that's not district funding to try out and experiment with these. Out of the 5 projects that were awarded for the Arts Accelerator program, almost all the other utilities have put all the money into one artist to do a certain project. And the project that our team has selected to do is more about around process and distributing those resources to support artists in our community to give us advice of value and create a culture and a team to develop ideas. And it's very innovative in the space right now, and everyone's watching what we're doing on this. So I want to just congratulate Catherine and Marty and Kathy and the whole team for really reaching out and taking a risk and trying this approach.
Okay, well, thank you, Michael, and thank you to all the team members that worked on it. Grant, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just also wanted to add my congratulations on this really exciting work. The One Water Madison website looks really great too. Thanks for, I don't know who's responsible for putting that all together, but really nice looking. And I mean, you mentioned a lot about different collaborations, and I just wanted to reinforce the value of that, particularly just from my context in terms of City of Madison. I think really continuing to find ways to partner on, especially on messaging and initiatives with both the water utility as well as the stormwater utility, and making sure that anytime they're putting out messaging related to salt use or overall water use or any of these topics where there's where we've got a shared stake in it, I think it'd be a great opportunity to make sure that the sewerage district is kind of part of those messages, so people can start to connect the dots that it is one water, right? That we're not a separate thing. So just encourage you to continue to develop those relationships and partnerships and really take advantage of any opportunities to connect on the messaging there. Thank you a lot.
I just want to kind of conclude here that this is a major change in direction. Well, it's actually one of the reasons I think, Ezra, you'd remember when we hired Michael, was a complete change in direction, because many of the former directors used to go on the basis that if the district's in the news or the public knows about the district, that's a bad thing, because that usually means something went wrong. And we realized at the time we took a different direction hiring Michael, was that it was getting to the point we need to do more and more public engagement and reach out, because the issues were becoming beyond just a district. And even, Jim Nemke, the former director who would kind of make that comment, understood that, because he was the one that kind of laid the groundwork for the Ahera Winds program. So, things have evolved in the district, and it's going to take a lot of effort by the district to get beyond kind of that institutional thinking that was so strong for so many years. And of course, as your one slide showed, we may not be known well, but it also seemed that utilities that are known better, they also have more negatives, and that just makes sense, because as people become more aware, not everything's always positive. So we just have to be prepared for that. Okay, thank you very much.
I think I saw someone else raising a hand here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
President Hubble, Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Catherine, has the district ever done any, now that Shop 1 is refurbished and it looks really good, have we ever done any school age tours or any type of educational outreach for the community in that building, or are there any plans on that? And
yeah. So there's in Shop 1 since 2015, there's just that one room that's been sort of refreshed. The rest of the building remains untouched. So there's just that main sort of conference room. And ever since that, the tours have been happening there. You can see in the district annual reports, we report the total number of school-aged visitors and total visitors every year. So that's usually 1,600, it's well over 1,000 visitors. Of all the plant tourists, about 900 a year are K-12 students. Most of them are coming from the district service area, but we even have people who come from outside of the district service area and outside Dane County to come here. So that's really speaks to the opportunity and the interest that's there. This is all completely unsolicited. So the tour, like I said in my presentation, it's really long standing. It's been going on for years and years. And the tour itself is just one of many opportunities we have here to to engage. So that the tour program was, like I said, is developed by engineers and staff who are not necessarily having an expertise in education. So we have a lot of opportunity there to work with educators and just make sure that we're we're having a lot of efficacy in what we're doing. So tours of school groups is certainly something that has been done, and I'm sure will continue into the future once we're kind of out of this COVID situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's huge
Great.
opportunity there, lots and lots to do.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I don't see any hands up. Okay, that takes us to, thank you very much again, Catherine. That takes us to the regulatory and legal review. Paul?
Thank you, President Hubble. Boy, that's a tough act to follow. So this won't be quite as exciting as that, but let me just highlight a couple of the things that we've been involved with last month, and then bring you up to speed on a couple of things for this month. We had quite an active month on regulatory items, both finishing up the disinfection discussion with DNR. There continued to be PFAS issues to look at, and there was some proposal to modify the Diggers Hotline provisions, and so we worked with staff to try and determine whether those changes would be an issue or not for the district. At the very end of the year, there was a issue that arose in the city of Madison for some late payment of connection charges, and ended up talking with the Developers Council about that. Other contract issues with the district have included working with the Lagoon contract and continuing to work with Bruce on the fiber easement corridor. And then just some general coordination to improve our contacts with DNR that I think Michael talked about last time. This month, many of those initiatives are continuing, but we're also working to staff up at our office to work with Bill and his team to really get the project for standardized contracts moving forward. And we hope to be meeting on that here in the next couple of weeks, and to be able to put some organization around what that might entail and how we could go about that. There's not a lot new on the legislative regulatory front at this point. You'll get another update at our next meeting. I would note, though, that the DNR is creating a PFAS policy advisory group as a follow-up to the WISPAC effort. And I recently received a letter from the secretary to be on that group. So I will continue to monitor, efforts on that, and be able to report back to the district as appropriate. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Paul.
You bet.
And then Alan, you're going to give the operations report.
I am. Thank you. Let me bring that up here. How much of that you can actually see? Can you see that? Are you hearing me and see me okay?
I can hear you, and we just don't see the presentation, Alan, yet.
All right. Let's try that one. Can you see that?
There you go.
Can you see
Good.
that slide? Okay.
We can see it.
Not quite sure why I did it that way, but that's okay. All right. So for the December plant performance, plant BOD, CBOD 5, that's our new limit that we've gotten. Right now we're showing that at about 10% of our normal limit. So that's not a, that's a value that's pretty good value. Keep in mind, that's a fairly new limit. We just started that in, I believe, May. And so we don't even have a full year's worth of data yet to. Is this not advancing slide?
You're on slide 2. We're seeing slide 2. There we go.
I apologize. That's we seem like we had a little bit of a glitch of that last month as well. So we're still kind of defining what those new limits look like, and that's I think you know, as we get more definition. Keep in mind the portion that's shaded here is the normal range. It's basically around 1 standard deviation of the average. So this is showing that we're higher than the average, but that average has been established. It isn't even a full year. We haven't even gone through a full winter yet. So we're still kind of defining what that envelope really is going to look like. And most of the other parameters, when we show these, it's like a 3-year average of how we've been doing. So we're still developing this performance envelope for CBOD5 and our effluent. So I think that you'll see that we'll have a better idea probably next year how that's doing. Certainly it's well below our effluent, our permitted limit. Ammonia, similarly, we're about 10% of the value we're allowed, typical wintertime values. Phosphorus, we're a little bit higher. That I believe is attributable to some of the disruptions we had in effluent phosphorus, or for the liquid processing. We had a little bit of a disruption there as we shifted flows around, and the microbiology just doesn't respond quite as quick in the wintertime. So I think that that's a side effect of that. So it's still well below our permitted 0.6 milligram per liter effluent phosphorus value. Total solids, wintertime, the colder water, Stokes' law kind of works against us, the water there. We don't get quite as good as settling. And so that's shows a little bit on the higher end of the normal range, but it's when you look at year-to-year values, that's a fairly typical wintertime value. So nothing alarming there. And on our chlorides, 370, that's better than we'd had in previous years. There's been a lot of positive efforts made with you know, the public education efforts that, you know, Emily, or correction, Catherine and the ecosystems group, kind of talking about some of those outreach efforts that we've done and made some real improvements with just reaching the community with things like chloride use. And so that number, you know, from my standpoint, my operations department, we can't do anything right now to touch that value. So that's, you know, that's a full credit to that department and their work within the community and educating. So any questions on this? Okay. Move on to the recovery slide. Struvite, at this point, this represents 2020 numbers. So total year-end numbers. You can see struvite production, we are down probably about 10% for the year overall. I really don't know that I've got a good reason for why that is. Sometimes it's idiosyncrasies of when you ship a particular truck. But it does look like, looking at 2018 and 2019, that's, you know, a slight declining trend on both of those. So truck is about 20 tons of product. So I don't think it's completely explained by that. It could be some fallout from COVID and different waste patterns. It could be fallout from our liquid processing. So, it appears to be that's, I don't have a definitive explanation for why that's down in 2020, but it is down about 10%. Clean water, we got that down as well. That's a function of how much flow we got. We had a relatively dry year. In that sense, I think I got my wish. I'd wished for a drought year in 2020 to make liquid processing sequencing just a little bit easier. I know that that's not something we want from a billing standpoint, but we didn't have a drought year, but we had a pretty low year. So that made things a lot easier from our standpoint to manage liquid processing in our construction projects. So in that respect, I think it was a blessing. Unfortunately, we've still got, we may return back to our normal, and we've got a pretty challenging phase of liquid processing coming up in this spring, high flows period coming up. Biogas, again, that's running about, right in line with the 3-year numbers. These graphs aren't really probably quite to scale, but those numbers are all, right in around the values we've had the last couple of years. Metromix, we have not made anything since we stopped the haul out and dewatering project in the spring. We've been basically focused on other efforts with that. So that high number is mostly a Class B biosolid that we took to the landfill, if the commissioners will recall. That small amount of Class A is shown there in a darker shade there. So that would be the portion that would be comparable to 2018 and 2019. So it's a much smaller fraction of that. And I guess this 2020 will have an asterisk year as far as Class A and Class B cake mix. Metrogro product, 32 million gallons sent to the storage tanks this year. That reduced amount is really a function of the higher amount that we sent to Metromix. So 32 million gallons, that's, a lot of that we went into the fall with fairly empty tanks. So we're actually sitting in really good shape, I think, for the spring haulout season, provided we don't get, provided winter doesn't last until June, so which I don't expect to have happen. Reused effluent, again, right in line with previous years. So I think the year looks pretty normal, and the deviations generally are what we might expect for the COVID year, just with change in work and that sort of thing. So any questions on resource recovery metrics, or any other questions you'd like to ask me? Okay, with that, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Nice report. Okay, that will take us to the future meeting schedule. There's always one with the agenda, the packet. Any future agenda topics or other business? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Commissioner Clark.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Clark, second by?
Second.
Was that Commissioner Meyer second? So, okay, so Commissioner Clark, second by Commissioner Meyer to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.
Take care.
Have a good
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.